Welcome to Beyond Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Petrellis, and we are really excited for today's guest for multiple reasons. You guys know every once in a while, I kind of have somebody on here who's a little bit different than what we cover typically, but ways that I think our topics and what we cover kind of connects in their world. And today is someone who I know we're going to be collabing together. We're going to be talking about that today. But someone who has a lot of mutual friends and are big friends of Jim Market, like we are. We do a lot of stuff with Jim's Market. I know you guys, you're a big fan of them. But someone who is just like a killer DJ, like on the music scene. If you go on his Instagram, he has a podcast. I mean, he talks all about music. I mean, sometimes he records his sets or where he is, and he's outstanding, man. And so I think the world of music and the world of pop culture and sports is more blended together than ever. So I think that music has a huge connection to sports and social media, which is a big result of how kids get noticed out there in clips, and sometimes it's the right clip and the right music and or the right whatever soundbite that just like kind of mixes together that just like explodes on social media and puts some kid on the map like instantly. So I think music connects everything. But I'm gonna stop blabbing. But our guest here today, I'm super excited. So without further ado, DJ Cammy V, Cam Viola.
What's going on, guys? Beyond Podcast. What's up, Anthony? How we doing, man?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Sorry for like the super long intro there, but I could have just kept going. And I was like, all right, we gotta
Dude,
let
what an amazing intro. No one's ever talked about me like that before. So
Yeah, we take a lot of pride here in our intros. I mean, it's important. It's like when you watch a movie trailer to a movie, like that's going to tell you whether you want to watch the movie or not. Like if you're listening to an intro, like I want people to stay on here and listen. So,
100%.
you got to bring your A game right away in the podcast. So, obviously we're on here to talk and you are in the DJ game. And like I mentioned earlier, to me, music has become more part of pop culture today, but even more so in sports. And covering this topic and over the next last few years of growing on Instagram and my algorithm, it's just sports, 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 sports. So and
Yeah.
music. So that's what pops up with us, and I think those worlds connect so well. But let's talk about you a little bit first. Getting into DJing, obviously you're killing it in the Boston music scene. I know that you travel elsewhere and you go to all different places, man. You are everywhere, but I know in Boston in particular, you are at some of the best spots around. So how'd you get into DJing, man, into the monster that you kind of are now?
Yeah. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, man, it's been a crazy journey. I started DJing. I've over just about over actually 10 years this September, believe it or not. I'm sure I just had my 10-year anniversary. But I started when I was in college. I'm sure like you had like a very strong interest in music, DJing, just exploring the creativity of that. And I'm sure even like from like a sports standpoint. So I played soccer pretty much my whole life, played a couple of years in college. And, it was pretty funny that a lot of the sports teams asked me personally to make them playlists and stuff like that. So I started doing playlists, started mixing in my room, my dorm room. I remember my roommate walked in and he was like, "Oh, is that you?" I was like, "Yeah, man." He's like, "Dude, you're pretty good." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, no, thanks, appreciate it." And dude, just been growing ever since. I started doing dorm room parties for a couple years, worked into like house parties, got into the bar and nightlife industry by the time I was a junior. And then, like, when I was a senior, I had multiple residencies in the Springfield area because that's where I went to college. I graduated Springfield in 2017, and then I came back to Boston. And then from there, I just basically started from ground zero again. Just how to meet the right people, get my foot in the door. Got some opportunities to open in some smaller college bars, and that's really where you practice and build your craft, right? You
Yeah.
can't just expect to go from 1,000-person room to right off the bat. So just really perfecting my sound and putting a lot of work in, and again just kept working my way up. I started opening, then I got my residencies, and then I basically came into contact with another DJ who is very big in the club scene right now as well. And he gave me an opportunity to open at a club probably around like 2019. And he heard me and he was like, "Dude, like you're way too good to be playing where you're playing. Like it's time for you to, come follow me and pull me in the club scene." And it's been it's been on the rise ever since. So
That's awesome, man. I mean, that's cool. Like for you, I mean, obviously a DJ probably has to be like well sound in all different types of musics. And when I listen to Drake, I feel like Drake always kind of has like it's kind of like three beats that jump in before like he sings, right? Like I kind of notice
mm.
that music. I don't know a lot of what that means and what that terminology is, but for you, what type of music maybe did you fall in love with? Like, what was the music you grew up listening to that was just like boom? Or were you wide range?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I'm definitely a hip hop guy at heart. Definitely a big hip hop guy. But my parents grew up 80s, 90s, so again, listen to their music, so love that. I do have a wide range of music, and I think part of that too is part of my job. I have to know that. I love reggaeton, I love EDM, I love dancehall music, even like some of the pop stuff I'm super familiar with and I enjoy. But definitely at heart, definitely a hip hop guy.
Where's a spot in Boston that you love playing? Like, obviously, you play a lot of different places, but where's one spot that you're just like crowds and be bumping, like you're gonna get everyone going?
Yeah, for sure. So I do a lot of the Pasha venues, which is right downtown in the theater district. And one of the biggest clubs I play for is at Icon. It's on Warrenton Street, right next to the W Hotel. And that's like, it's an open format room, but like definitely like my sets there are more hip hop based. So for me, it's like I get to really play what, not, I know I'm going to get the crowd going, obviously, but like I really get to play like what I love to play.
Yeah, so like, and that's awesome because like you came in maybe understanding one different type of music, and then all of a sudden you kind of grown in it, and now you're understanding how to put different sounds of music together, and
Hmm.
maybe creating a sound that's just different, or what's getting you noticed, like you did in 2019, for example, right? Like for you now, when you're putting sets together, like what's going through your mind as far as like different types of music that you mix? So like how do you go about saying, hey, this hip hop and maybe this country might
Mm.
work well?
Dude, that's an amazing question, and I talk to a lot of like younger guys now. Obviously, I've been in the game for like 10 years, so just the advice I give to the younger guys coming up is, you want to create moments throughout the night. And that's a big thing. It's not about mixing song A to song B the same way vanilla. Like I want to elicit emotions from the crowd. I want to get that aha moment, like, oh wow, I wouldn't have pictured that. So, throughout my sets, I'm definitely a high energy guy, but I almost like I steer you in one direction, and then like I take a hard left. But you have to have it make sense, right? You can't just be
Yeah.
playing like there's certain ways where you can make the music make sense together, whether it's like a word play, the song says like the same words in both of it, and that's your bridge over, or if it's like, there's a million ways to go about it. And I think for me, what's really elevated my career is the fact that like I'm looking to create moments throughout the nights, and that's how I build my sets. Like, oh man, this would be an absolute moment in the club that people won't forget, and that's how I do it.
Now for you, I mean, so I hear you say that, right? Like, you're about like kind of creating the moment, creating the experience, and
Hmm.
that's awesome. And this is why I think our worlds are so parallel, because people just think of DJs, they think you show up, you put your equipment on, music's all set, and that's it. And like
Mm.
it's not even remotely the case. Like we cover coaches, we cover athletes, and we talk a lot on this podcast about the things that you do when no one's watching or no one's seeing it or no one's understanding. Like for you, just talk a little bit about like you got a show, say, coming up Saturday. I'm just hypothetical in here. Like today's Sunday, what work are you putting in throughout the week to be ready for that show on Saturday? Like, what are some things that you're doing that people just are not aware that you have to probably consistently do all the time?
Yeah, it's funny. DJing is a full time job. It is for me. I DJ full time now, and throughout the week, I'm keeping my ear to the streets. And it's interesting too because you kind of alluded it earlier on in your intro. Um, the accessibility to music, I feel like, has definitely changed a lot within the last few years, even, right? Like with short form content, social media, streaming. So artists are pumping out more music now, right? And it's like shorter clips. So now I have to familiarize myself with those clips that people are constantly looking at on their phone. There's certain, like, everyone knows, like, if you're on Instagram right now, there's about a million different sounds that people kind of recycle. So it's like, so a lot of times I'll go through Instagram, and I'll listen for some of those sounds, be like, oh, how can I incorporate this into my set and have it be really cool? Also listen to a lot of mixes, staying up to date with my music. Don't listen so much to the radio unless it's my friends are playing these days, but that's definitely another option. So basically, I'm going through and picking out like things to implement during my sets, and then I have to go and download the music, and then I have to go and organize the music on my software that I have. I use Serato, and then once I organize it and I cue point everything, then I'm like, okay, it's now I can use it in a set. And it's interesting. Like, I feel like as far as like DJing, the DJing industry is very similar to like comedians, right? So like I'll go out and I'll test something, like I'll be doing something on my computer at home, be like, oh, this is gonna go crazy in the club. And like I test it out, I'm like, oh, didn't get the reaction that I thought I was gonna get. So I scrap that, like, okay, rearrange the pieces, try it out again. It's like comedians when they do shows, they're trying
How
to
is
see
that
what gets those
mentally for
reactions.
you? Like, how is that mentally for you? Like, you anticipate a pop, you don't quite get the pop that you think you're gonna get. Like, does that mess with you mentally a little bit at all? Like,
Nah, not really. It's one of those things too. It's like sometimes it could just be the crowd.
yeah, right, right.
So it's like, I'll try it again, and maybe it's the presentation. I say this a lot too. Sometimes it's not the music, sometimes it's how you play it. I could play a song. There's a million different ways you can play a certain song, and sometimes the way that you bring in a record really is what's going to get that reaction. And again, I made a career out of it. So it's all about trial and error. Trial and error. You got to sit down and really pay attention. You got to read the room, see how people are feeding off of what you're playing and how you're playing it.
When was there a moment that you knew you nailed something? Like, and it might not be necessarily the best set you've ever done, and you could most certainly use that as this answer. But
Mm-hmm.
when was there a time that you nailed the set, maybe at a moment or a certain moment that you maybe needed to nail it, or you wanted to nail it, or maybe just what your best set was that you just like, yeah, I'm the real deal. Like, I know I can do this.
That's a great question. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with this. I think the point where like I made it moment. I think once I got my first headlining set at a club, and the people in charge were trusting in me to like headline that night, and just seeing crowd reactions be like, it took me like, I don't know, maybe 7, 8 years to get to that point. So yeah, 7 years to get to that point, and to see 7 years of work pay off, to seeing people like jumping up and down and losing their mind, bars making money. The promoter comes up to me at the end of the night, was like, "This is one of the best nights we've had." So I think that's definitely one of the moments where I realized, like, yeah, I'm definitely like one of the guys out here that's really putting in work and made it.
Yeah, man. And you can see that, like, and you talked a little bit about it and you said it, and we'll jump into it in a second. Like, I see your social media, like, and I pay attention to your stuff and the music that you put out or where you're going to be. I think you do a great job of kind of always letting people know where you are. And obviously, you have a following that's interested in knowing that. And you
Hmm.
seem pretty consistent with your work and what you do in this area, or even you travel a little bit,
Yep.
which is great to see. Social media, I mean, how much has social media just become, like, just Instagram alone become this like tool for you that you get to promote who you are and what you do, and it's helped you maybe grow quicker than you've ever realized?
Yeah, I put in a lot of work, especially over COVID, into the social media game. I feel like the nightlife industry is one of the most resilient industries in the world. Obviously, like, we were the last industry to open back up, right? And so it's like, okay, what can I be doing with this time? And I feel like my time was really spent on creating content on social media, doing routines, making mixes, and just keeping the content out of there. So I'm staying relevant while also like growing my following, because I'm like, hey, if I'm fresh in the mind of people that are booking me for these venues, like, and they constantly see that I'm still putting in work, I'm going to be one of the first people they call. and guess what? Like we did live streaming sets over COVID, and we're having like 500,000 people like pop in there to watch us, DJ. So it's like, oh wow, he actually has like a following that, is really interested in what he's doing. They're going to come and support him once we open back up. So I feel like that's part of it. The other part too, we're definitely in like a content driven society right now. And at the end of the day, it's like there's a lot of dudes that probably spend too much time on their social media and their image rather than actually practicing the craft. So it's like it's definitely a super super powerful tool if you do it correctly. But at the end of the day, like you can't fake the funk. There's a lot of guys that like have like I don't know 50,000 followers on Instagram, but then it's like it's like, oh, promoter sees like 50,000 people, that's his reach. He's going to bring in more people, and then he goes and they book him. He does a night and he bombs.
Right.
So it's about it's a balancing act, right? You got to be able to showcase your skills to the best of your abilities, and build that following with the social media.
Yeah, obviously, like even for me, I feel like I've had to learn so much more about social media and what I put out there because we have shifted gears for ourselves where we were very early on coach driven type podcasts. We've since kind of really opened up with the videography stuff, but really having a lot of high school and college athletes on here, which is kind of really our following alone and being able to post things for kids. To have kids send us some of their clips is just real cool. And now
Yeah.
it's just happening at random. So for you, it's the same thing. I mean, is it cool that you have? I mean, I'm sure when you go to like a nightclub or you go wherever, like you see some of the same faces that are like kind of your people. Like, it's cool. I mean,
Yeah.
it's gotta be cool. I mean, it's gotta be kind of cool, right?
Dude, it's awesome, man. And I always love when people reach out to me, be like, hey, I'm pulling up to Boston tonight. Like, where are you gonna be at? Anybody that reaches out to me and wants to come see me and spend their money to come see me, like I'm super, super appreciative of. And I'll do anything I can. Be like, hey, free cover, get to skip the line. Sure. You know what I mean? I'll buy you around at the bar. Like it does mean the world to me that, people want to come out and see me and support.
Yeah, I mean, that's real cool, and you should put that on your social media more. People like reach out to you and say that stuff to you, like be like, hey,
Yeah.
can I use this for my Instagram? Because I think that that's like in your industry, like in this, like it's really hard. It's really hard when you have a lot of people that do what you do and you have to become distinct in a way with your sounds or your
Yeah.
how you put yourself out there. And obviously, like anything else, just get lucky sometimes too and just hit with the right thing or whatever. So I understand the grind and hustle that goes into the work that you do, obviously, like we mentioned, that no one sees, that like no
Hmm.
one notices that you do. And we know that we have kind of like mutual friends in Jim's market, as well as obviously talking about following each other, and there's like that Mefford connection.
Yep.
To me, there's also the Jim's market connection. I notice you guys follow each other, and I think even on your Instagram profile it says that you're sponsored by Jim's market. So
Sponsored by Jim's Market. Yeah. Shout out Jim's, baby. Shout out my boy Justin. Yeah. So actually, very funny. So my mom will be the first person to tell you this. Justin was my very first friend. I've known Justin since we went to preschool together,
yeah.
and just been like really, really close ever since. I actually worked at Jim's for a couple years. Got a sub named after me. Get the Cammy V while you're there. Low
Yeah.
key fire. It's the chicken finger sub with it's the sweet sauce, the Chinese sauce, and the it's like a spicy sauce, so it's a mix.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
that
pretty
sounds
good.
awesome. I mean, we're on the menu too with the Beyond. It's the
Yeah.
bacon bacon and ranch or whatever, or bacon ranch and beyond. So it's cool to be on their menu. Yeah, I mean, I think he does a great job there, and obviously the renovation
Yeah,
just made it like just kind of connect to me like decades and generations of people that have kind of gone through there
100%.
with all sorts of stuff. So he
I'm
does.
so I'm so proud of him, man. He really did put in a lot of work, and speaking of like social media, like he really turned gyms into like a lifestyle brand. Like
Yeah.
he definitely has his own followers that like he's definitely grown the culture of gyms like online. So I'd love to see that for him. Super happy.
Yeah, I mean, and for you guys, it must be cool being buddies and both in a way, kind of being like independent entrepreneurs in your field and in your sense of like growing a business and kind of growing a brand. Like you guys both are doing that in a sense for yourself. Um, what do you kind of have going on, like, over the next month? I mean, fall, obviously, there's all sorts of stuff like Halloween's around the corner. I'm sure you're always doing something crazy for that. But what do you got coming up maybe over the next few months for you as fall kicks in, that you be or where you be or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now I have multiple residencies, like I alluded to earlier: Icon, Venue, Hava, Bodega Canal, which I'm at once a month, which is over by the Garden, one of my favorite places in Boston. And then also Game On. So I'm the booking director at Game On. So I hire all like the DJ talent there and create the schedule. So I'm there like a few times a month. I put myself on. Um, so I have that, and also, as you know, fall big wedding season, right? So I work for Meritage Entertainment for weddings. So like I said, hey, if anyone is getting married, definitely give me a call, reach out to me. And I would love to DJ for them. So been with the company 5 years now. And we're actually opening up a branch in Philly. So if anyone's got any Philly connections, definitely reach out as well. So just doing a lot of work, back end work with them. Yeah, man, so just keep them busy. You know me, I'm every weekend's like someplace different, so it's tough to keep track of it all, but thank God I got a calendar.
Yeah, I mean, for you, I think that's like I mentioned, you do such a great job of like being like, okay, this is where I'm going to be. And obviously, you add in wedding season, and people don't realize that there are so many different like branches off of what you do as far as the type of DJ that you can be, whether it's in the
Mm,
club scene or the bar scene or covering, what you're covering. And I think that that's so important because what we do, sports is all different types of sports and how it's played and how it's looked at and how it's covered the same exact way. um for you, obviously, you got a busy fall coming up with wedding season and being at different bars for you. But for you, you also got a podcast, so like on top
I
of
do.
kind of doing all of what you're doing, you're also podcast that's like 70 something episodes in. I think we're saying 5, 6, 7, 8, somewhere around that window. And that's impressive, you, because I know how hard it is. Like some weeks I do two, some weeks I do one, some months I kind of kick in the full gear, do 5 or 6 of them. It just kind of depends what you have going on. So for you, obviously busy schedule for you, with weddings, like we said, different venues that you're going to be at, and then on top of that, you got all that, right? So
Yeah.
uh yes, talk about that for you.
So I'm part of the But I Know the DJ podcast. Shout out
Mhm.
to my boys Snacks and Fingers, my two co-hosts, also two very, very big DJs in Boston. It's funny. This is circling back to like over COVID. This was something I pitched to Snacks and Dope Entertainment. Shout out Dope Entertainment, who I do the podcast with. They were in the process of doing like a bunch of different like lifestyle podcasts and stuff like that, and I was like, hey, feel like it'd be a really cool idea to do something that shines a light on nightlife, get some artists on, get some other DJs, and they're like, wow, that's actually a great idea. So
Mhm.
something we put together. We're on episode 75 now, and we've actually had some like pretty wild interviews. I'm not gonna lie. We've had Neo on.
What?
We've had Antonio Brown on.
What?
Yeah, man. If you haven't, check us out. We're on YouTube. Definitely check us out on YouTube. It's at Dope Entertainment, and it's But I Know the DJ. We're on Spotify, But I Know the DJ. But that episode was pretty wild. We've had Knowledge 2K5. We had Mosa, who's one of like Drake's artists. So we've had some like pretty legitimate guests on, which is cool.
I mean, so for you, that must be cool, like dual branding in a sense, because anybody you have come on, like
Yeah.
I love when I start talking to a coach who has success or has clout or people know who they are, and we're just flowing in conversation. They're like, I feel the vibe of like, okay, they know that I know my stuff. So they're gonna have like a legit conversation that we both understand what we're saying. For you, you must feel that way at times, or you must want like to feel that way. Like, do you feel like when you have a Neo on or like an Antonio Brown on, like when you're talking to these people, do you feel like I belong here? Like you're 70 something episodes in, like do you have that confidence of like yeah, I could see myself really talking to anybody.
You know, at the end of the day, these people, yeah, they're celebrities, but they're normal people, you know, and just to have, I think Neo arguably was like one of the nicest people legitimately I've ever met. And he was just super, super easy to talk to. You know, some of the other guys, like it's harder to pull answers out of, and you know, it's like, who the hell are these guys? They're just three Boston DJs. But you know, it's at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, like we're kind of in the same circle, you know, it's and we touched on it before, like that athlete music circle is all, it's all interconnected somehow. There's definitely a bridge between like those people and myself, but ultimately you just got to boil it down. There's normal people and they live their lives. They put their pants on one leg at a time, you know. So that's how you got to look at it.
That's cool too. And for you, it must be great because that's you getting your name out there, I'm sure, to these guys too. Like that you're able to share something that you've put together or a place that you've played and then to see video of that. Has that helped you in that aspect of your career as far as maybe someone making a call? And like I said, sometimes you just get lucky, right? Like has there
Right.
been that moment for you?
Yeah, not to like a crazy extent yet, but you know, I've actually done like a handful of like celebrity shows, whether it's like club appearances at you know, at Icon or like Game On, for example. Like I've done shows with Sean Paul. We that night we did the Neo podcast. I helped DJ his album release party, so his official album release party. Sammy Adams. I've done shows
Yeah.
with Rich the Kid and Sean Kingston. So yeah, just being on the same stage as these guys is pretty cool, and obviously like heightens my platform a little bit. You know, it's and you know, ult- what means the most to me is ultimately like the people that book these events trust me enough to have me. It's a high stakes event. Like, let's be serious. You know, there's thousands of people that are paying like a lot of money to come see these guys. So yeah, just earning the trust of the people that book me for that event really means the world to
And it's so cool. And to hear some of those names, I mean, Sammy Adams is a big name around here. And then like obviously Sean Kingston,
me.
there is no opener in any music or any song out there that never gets old is the Sean Kingston of your way to be beautiful. My voice is terrible, girl, right? But
Nailed
like
it. Sing it, baby. Sing
dude, like
it.
that opener is like when hearing that, I'm always that song. I'm like, that's a song like when a certain TV show or movie's on TV and you put it on, you're like, oh, and you end up watching the whole thing because you love the
Yeah.
movie. That song, like I will listen to that song until the very end and have the same reaction to it all the time. It's crazy.
It's timeless music, man. He's got timeless hits, and his catalog is actually hilarious. Like I'm like, oh man, I forgot about this one, forgot about that one.
I mean, and that must be cool for you when you for I mean, Sean Kingston, that's a pretty not to put not saying that the other names are, but Sean Kingston obviously is played with a lot of different artists, including Justin
Yeah.
Bieber and whatever. But like that, I mean, how cool of a moment that is when you're playing with someone like that that you would just like, all right, like I can hang with people in this industry. Like I can do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, you know, that's the Sean Kingston show specifically was probably the biggest show I've done, like as far as like numbers wise. I think they did about like 2K in tickets. It was at Royale in Boston. So, you know, it was my first time in like that room period, like to play in that room. So obviously a little bit daunting, but you know, it's funny. It's a cool feeling. Um, People ask me like, do you get nervous before you go on? I don't get nervous. I get excited. I get anxious isn't the right word, but like heart rate's going up, but for the right reason. Because as soon as I get behind there on the decks, man, like it just second nature for me. It just kicks on. So the anticipation, I guess, is like, you know, like all right, I got to get locked in here, and as soon as I step up there, I'm good to go. You know.
How long is it set for you?
It depends where. I'd say majority. If I'm doing like a full set, it's usually 4 hours. If I'm doing like a headline set, somewhere between 2 to 3 hours.
So 4 hours. So when you practice something like that throughout the week to make sure that everything works, how are you practicing that? Because obviously it's not just like 4 hours on Tuesday, 4 hours on Wednesday. I mean, how are you kind of making sure that all that you have from beginning to end is tight and locked in like you need to?
So yeah, exactly. So great question. I probably should have elaborated on this a little bit earlier, but so basically everything that I do is live during my sets. like I said, like I'll do like I'll have like transitions that I think of that I want to like put in throughout the night. But
Okay.
it's everything I do is live and spontaneous. I'm reading the room at all times. It's not like I have like songs 1 through like 200 like in order. This is what I'm gonna go in and do. Everything I do is like in real time. Like, oh, like this, I'm gonna go from like this to this, or like, hey, like I got a pop from this genre earlier. Let me circle back and like hit more records there.
All right, hit
Uh,
me on this. This is awesome. Okay, so give me an example here. So right now we're dancing to some Drake song. Pick a Drake song that you're playing right now.
okay, say it was like sicko mode.
Okay, so people dance in sicko mode. You see that people like really into it, not necessarily playing another Drake song, but what song are you thinking about circling back to by playing something like that? That you're mentioning same genre that you're like, all right, I'm going to circle back because people are rocking to this.
Yeah, so if it's like if it's one of those rooms that like big because Sicko Mode probably one of the biggest hip hop records in the last like 20 years, right?
Mhm.
So I'm thinking like big room hip hop records. I'll probably do like Mo Bamba or something like that. I have like a really creative transition. It's like when I shoot my shot, that wetty like I'm Shaq. So I like loop that going to Mo Bamba. So it's like same vibe. You get what I'm saying? Like it's
Dude,
I'll do
yeah, I
that.
love that. I
Like
love
I'll go,
that because how quick you thought of that too, right? Like that's not a question. Like sometimes I get nervous to ask a guest a question on the spot because like, and I feel bad as like, I just get excited. I ask a question to ask you that, and for you to already be like, oh no, like, boom, like to me, that's really cool. Like to do that spontaneous. I'm sure not a lot of people have confidence going into an event, a 4 hour set, whatever that is, to walk in there and being like, I'm just gonna fill the room and I'm gonna put this type of music on. And that takes a lot of guts. Is that something you realize when you were DJing, like at some points? Because is that maybe you did prep so much and then you're like, you know what, like this is just I gotta be more me, or is that something you've just been and kind of has been your signature?
um that's a tough question. I think that's just been me for from the very beginning. I do take pride in myself. I think one of my biggest attributes as a DJ is the ability to read a room. And I think part of it too comes down to like because I care so much about like how the nights go, and I want to like give the best representation of myself to that crowd. I'm constantly putting in hours of work, like for technical skills and like developing my musical bag and my musical knowledge. Like you could throw me in any room and I could confidently say like I could rock it a full like it could be like a full Latin night, no problem. I could easily do like a 4 hour Latin night, no problem. So it
Okay.
takes a long time, a lot of trial and error. Like you're doing smaller gigs to lead up to the next big thing. And I think, my years of experience have definitely contributed to that.
Now let me ask you a question because I had this debate with some people. We were driving home from a wedding just today. We were talking about the music at it.
Okay.
And my buddy and I were having this debate. And to me, I think a wedding is always remembered by two major things. One,
Okay.
food,
Yep.
because everyone's gonna be like, remember the chicken at that wedding, or remember whatever at that wedding, right? And the other's music. Like
Yeah, absolutely.
if people are on the dance floor dancing all night long, that means the DJ is doing their job. Period.
Million percent.
Like
Million
they're
percent.
keeping people on the floor. And I think there's a difference between getting people on the floor versus keeping people on the floor and people not hearing a song going, uh, and I'm sure you've done it, right? I mean, it happens like in teaching. I know I've made there's really mistakes, right? But for the most part, like reading, that's a gift. That's like you got to be pretty good at that. Um, how do you do that? Like, do you do that for a wedding too? Are you on the spot for a wedding too?
Yeah, yeah, all the time. And it's like it's one of those things too. Like I've been doing this for a while, so I know it's gonna work, right? And so I have. So I'll say this as well. So we do have like consultation phone call like a week
Right.
before the wedding, and just making sure like I'm ironing out all the details. And I really try to personalize it best for the couple. Be like, I want it to be a representation of them ultimately, right? Like, guys, like what is your musical vibe? Like, what are you guys going for? And sometimes like majority of people like are pretty much into the same thing and they can steer me like in one direction a little bit more. And I'm just like, yep, absolutely. Like I'm very confident going in any direction, like I said. And then sometimes it's like, if they're like into like a super, super like niche genre, it's like, guys, Like, I'm sure both of you are super enthusiastic about this like crazy heavy metal genre, but
Mhm.
how confident are you that your aunt or your grandmother or your uncle are going to be just as enthusiastic about it as you? Oh
Right.
yeah, no, I didn't think about it that way. So it's like, hey, if you guys work with me and let me do, if you guys trust me to do my job to like, you know, navigate those waters and keep everyone out there while I'm still hitting your songs along the way, I promise you're going to get a great result. So, all of that to say, yes, I do it live. Yes, I know it's going to work. I've been doing this for a while. So, I'm pretty confident that no matter what the situation is, I'm going to get people out there and packed on the dance floor the whole time.
You have ice in your veins, dude. So you are just like loaded, like you are confident in what you do. How much does it bother you? Because this is what I was debating with my buddy going back to it. Sorry, I
Mm.
get sometimes just
No,
get
no, I like it.
when you talk. I said to him, nothing must annoy a DJ more when someone goes, these are the songs you're gonna play at our wedding. Are you just like, are you kidding me? Like, can you just get someone to hit play and just make a list of
The
songs and do that?
the worst is when like I'm DJing and you just get like a phone up like this, So it's like like song requests. I'm like, oh man, like come on, like. And 9 times out of 10, like I'm probably gonna get to that song anyways. You know what I mean? So it's like you gotta trust me. Like you guys. You guys are paying me like money.
Right.
Obviously, like you guys trust me to a certain extent. Like, please, I promise you, like if you let me do my job, I'm gonna get like the best results possible for you. So
That
it's not so
was
much more it's not so much more the wedding scene that happens in, but like the nightlife scene, it's like guys, like relax, I'm gonna get there, I promise.
yeah.
The wedding scene, it's like I do like to. I'll be honest, I do love like to meet these individual couples and like try to meet them where they're at to create that musical environment that they're looking for because I think that is super important. You don't want it to be like I want couples to leave their wedding saying like I really feel like the DJ understood us as a couple. I feel like that's very lost today. I'm sure there's a lot of guys that go to weddings and play the same set front to back every single time. And I really take pride in putting time aside to really understand like what their vibe is, what they're going for, and make it as personal as possible.
I mean, I that's so interesting because yeah, I mean, it is an art for you. And I guess like going through that process myself, thinking about when I got married, like I guess I didn't look at it like that. But how do you handle? I mean, obviously you're a really good DJ. Like you play in big spots in town, you've played with big artists, you've collaborated with big artists. I mean, you go to someone's wedding. When someone gives you a song request that you know is just brutal, like you hear the song request and you know
Mm.
there's no chance I'm playing this song. How do you handle that? Because that is a legit issue I'm sure you have. And how do you deal with something like that?
Yeah, I'll say this. So like weddings are super, super humbling. And anytime I step to a wedding, ego's at the door the whole time. It's not about me, it's about the couples, right? And I feel like my job is to again highlight, it's the biggest day arguably of like people's lives. So it has nothing to do with me. It's more of keeping the focus on the couple, and that's what I strive to do. Um, when it comes to song requests that don't match the vibe or like don't, and I'm like, yeah, there's no way I can get to. It's an interesting conversation you have to have, with these people, and it's like, hey, like I can see if I can try to mix it in. And sometimes, like, I try to educate them on it. Like, guys, like, that could be tough. Like, everyone's up and dancing now, jumping up and down. We have about a half hour left. I'm gonna try to see if I can get to it, but I can't make any promises. Usually, that conversation will be like, oh, okay, yeah, no worries if they're reasonable people. But sometimes like people had a couple drinks and they keep coming up and asking for the
You gonna
songs. Like,
put it on yet? You gonna put it
yeah,
on yet?
yeah. So it's like it's like, yeah, it's coming, don't worry,
Yeah.
it's coming. And it's like, oh, hey man, sorry I didn't get to it at the end of the night. It's tough, man. I don't want to create any issues, more headaches for couples during their biggest day. So it's like I try to handle everything as best I can.
Yeah, and I think that that is, legitimate. I think that that is in the line of dealing with people and dealing with
Mm.
public, dealing with people pay you for a service, and
Right.
they might have an expectation versus what your expectation is or what and that cannot be easy to deal with either of that aspect of your business as well. So yeah, I always find that stuff funny because I see so many people go like, dude, I'm gonna go request this song, bro. And you're like, no, what? Like, no
Yeah.
one's gonna be on the dance floor if that song comes on. I'm like, what do you think? And
Yeah,
it's
go
like
in your
there's
car
like
and listen
two
to it,
people
pal.
that love it, dude. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. My favorite is like, I'm telling you, everybody's gonna love this song. And it's like, all right, yeah, sure, no problem. I play it, and there's like kills the dance floor. You know what I mean? So it's like at this point, I'm like, I know it's gonna work. I know it's not gonna work. Like, don't
Dude,
don't act like you know more than I do at this point.
my at my wedding, my older brother, he's like huge into like huge techno, like EDM guy, big time.
Cool.
So he wants to put this song on that has no lyrics or anything. And I was like, dude, I get it. Like, but no one's gonna come on the dance for this song. Please don't request it. Blah, 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 blah. He must ask DJ like 22 times to put the song on. And DJ's like looking at me, and I go, just put it on. Just put it on. And I go to my brother, I go, if the dance floor clears, song's coming off. And he's like, okay. Okay. And he goes out there and he's like dancing and like, doesn't see the room. He just sees his feet on the dance floor.
Of
You
course.
turn around, dude. There's nobody on the dance floor besides him. No one. Like
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
one. Like I see like Jenna glaring at me, and I'm just like, go to the DJ, go next song,
It's
go,
over. Yeah.
go,
Get out
yeah,
of this.
you know,
Oh man. I'll tell you one thing, when the day comes that I get married,
yeah.
in the invitation, it's gonna say no song request. Don't even think about it. If I see you asking the DJ for a song at my wedding, I'm kicking you out of my wedding.
Would you spin at your own wedding? Would you have to go
No,
on and maybe do no, nothing?
no, absolutely not. Nope, nope, not at all.
I
I'm off the clock that day.
I like that. I like that a lot. I respect that. I think that you just kind of say, hey, today's my day, and I'm not gonna let it be about me, going on there and doing
Yeah, yeah, it's an important thing. It is definitely important, and putting in perspective. It's a day you definitely want to share with your partner. And
yeah.
my partner, she's definitely sacrificed a lot. For I'm out on late nights. I'm out like 5, 6 nights a week. The least I could do is be 1,000,000% present on our wedding day. So
Yeah, absolutely, dude. That sounds nice. That sounds good. Hear that. Hear that. Hear
there
that.
you go. Yeah, listen up, boys. Take some notes. Take some notes, boys. I'm giving you the keys to Ferrari right
It's
now.
it is so important. It's so important. So obviously you found a lot of success in what you're doing, and obviously like I'm much older than you, dude, right? But like you, as time goes on, music changes and different artists come out and different types of music become more popular. Like I hear some songs now and I'm like, who's that? What?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
kids are singing it. I mean, for you probably have to say extremely relevant in music that comes out. Like coaches educate themselves in the off season to get better at what they're doing. Athletes physically perform, whether it's in the weight room or play other sports, to get physically and athletically better. What does a DJ do as far as educating themselves and maybe getting better at their craft during different, maybe like slow seasons?
yeah. No, I mean, a lot of that too comes down to just staying up on the music. Listen to different playlists. I follow a bunch of the newer artists. It's interesting because it's like it's not necessarily like some of the new hip hop is like you know pretty egregious to put
Right.
it
I
lightly.
mean,
It's
right. Let's
it's
be
to put it
real.
lightly, and I'm like, what are we talking about right now? So, and again, like I'm definitely a big hip hop guy. It's definitely gone in like in a weird direction. Hip hop's in a weird place right now, but it doesn't mean that there's a room full of people that doesn't want to hear those types of songs. So staying up to date on it, and it's interesting too. So I'm also a resident DJ for Slacker University, which is a 18 plus party. We're based in Boston, but that's most of my travel gigs. Like I've traveled to West Virginia. I went to Texas A&M last month. So a lot of my travel
18
gigs are
plus? Holy
eight.
moly.
Yeah, exactly. As you can imagine. So it's like a lot of this new music, like you're alluding to, like that's them. Like that music is literally for them. And I'll say this. I'm sure, as you know, being a teacher, right? Attention spans could not be lower than it is
Ugh,
today. And I
totally.
attribute that a lot to, like social media, short form content, like just all that definitely has to play into it. So me as a DJ, it's like, okay, I not only need to be up on the newest stuff possible, because that's where the music industry is now. It's just pumping out, like, people could go make a song in 20 minutes and have it up on the internet. So it's like you got to stay up to date on the music, but also move through it super quickly, because more often than not, if it's like a verse and a chorus or even just a chorus, people are already over the song. And to be honest, too, now I'm saying this out loud, could be the only part of the song that they know, because they only know the song from social media, like TikTok, right? So it's like, oh yeah, I only know the chorus. So you need to know your music, even your new music, so well, to the point that you need to know how to play it and what parts to play. So there's a lot. I know I just threw a lot at you, but there
It
really
is. It's
is
a
a
lot.
lot that goes into it.
And I think that's it. Like, that's kind of why I asked the question, because I'm sure for you, like, when people think of coaching, like for me, when football season was over, it's like, yeah, but then conferences start in January. And then,
Right.
after February vacation, it's really pushing the weight room. And then the spring, it's getting a lot of kids to do track. And sometimes when I was younger, like coaching track just to make sure the football kids were showing up to the weight room or
Mm,
playing and doing the workouts and everything else. Like, so there's a lot to it. And then the summer, obviously 7-on-7, and you're an athlete, you were an athlete yourself, that you're playing in all different sorts of leagues, or AU this or whatever it is for soccer. Like, I'm not familiar with every sport, but like as far
yeah.
as that goes, but you're playing a lot of travel constantly. So you understand that. You understand the hustle that goes into it. So for your industry, it's the same thing, dude. You're chasing shows all over the place. I'm sure when you get your first call to do whatever, you're like, all right, let's go. Like, you don't care what time it is, where the location could be in the worst area ever. You're
Right.
like, I don't care, because you're like ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, you got to always be mentally prepared. I look at my gigs as if they're like actual games. I think, and I alluded to it earlier, I think, my sports career almost like helped me with my DJing. I have that competitive drive to always like get better. Like, what can I'm my own worst critic. I think, and it's a gift and a curse, but it is, I think ultimately it really is a good thing, because if you have like good self-awareness, whether it's for like a sport or a job, like a full-time job, whatever you're doing, to have good self-awareness on, and always being like, what can I improve on? It really drives out the best in you.
What's something that you would say over the last few years, and obviously we all have weaknesses, so I'm not saying this
Hmm.
like, but what's maybe something that was weaker in your game or in your arsenal tool weapons that you feel like you've gotten just so much better at over the last couple of years that you maybe didn't realize you could even do that?
Yeah, so this is interesting. I think especially the last like 3 years. I think COVID onward, right? The biggest thing for me, like I'm very very gifted technically, and I have no issue saying that. Like, I think scratching, like, very very technically gifted. I think my music knowledge is there. I think the biggest thing for me was having the confidence with emceeing and rocking the mic. I think there's a lot, and depending on what type of like avenue of DJing you go into, there's more emceeing than others. But being like a predominant like hip hop open format DJ, emceeing is huge. So I think part of it was I didn't really have those reps in those smaller rooms at commanding the room with like the mic and everything. So it was like part of it was like getting used to being on that big stage, and learning how to project my voice,
Mm.
to what to say, when to say it. So it took a while, and again, that's something I'm still continuing to try to get better at. I
Yeah.
think it's surprising enough, like weddings definitely helps, because you need to be super clear and
Right.
deliberate of how you're delivering information to people, because other than that, people just be wandering around like, what did he say?
Yeah, I don't
So
know what he meant. Yeah.
exactly. So I think weddings has definitely helped. Not that I'm saying the same things that I'm saying in the club at a wedding, but you get my drift there. But I think that's helped. And I think going and seeing other DJs, what elements they can add, with their emceeing and stuff like that. How can I, like, I'm not gonna, copy what they're saying or something like that, but like, oh, I like how, when he did this at this point in the song, there was like an energy shift or something like that. So I'm like, it's more like fine tuning, I guess, with that. It's always, there's always like more ways that I could be like creative during my sets too, like musically, but that's always an ongoing process. I never stopped that. I think emceeing was the biggest thing for me in the last 3 years.
Do you have like a song or a genre of music that, like, when you're getting ready for a show, that you're listening to that kind of get you to that place or kind of get you into that lock-in mode, like, or
Oh
do
man,
you just kind of like
this is a good
whatever?
question. Yeah, this is hilarious. So even when I was an athlete, I would listen to really sad music before a game. Like, I'm talking, like, I have no shame in admitting this. Like, I'll listen to like "I'm Like a Bird" by Nelly Furtado, like before, you know, what I mean? So I was like,
Yeah.
all right, like, because sometimes I felt like I would get like it over like stimulated, over hyped up, and that's like not what I need in the moment. I need to like, I need to be a little bit more zen, and that's how I operate best. And it's interesting too. I think being a coach, so I did coach soccer for 3 years at Malden Catholic after I graduated Springfield, and it's super important to know what type of athlete each one of your athletes is. I feel like you can't coach kids the exact same way. I think you need to know, like, you can push one kid a little bit harder than you push another one, or like what type, how you deliver information to certain athletes on your team. I think that's a big element of it. I think some people respond better than others to certain ways. So I think that also ties in with like the music aspect too, because it's like, if someone's like getting like too hyped up before a game, then they have those pregame jitters.
Right.
So it's all about like not only knowing your athletes, but like knowing yourself as well. Like, what type of athlete am I? How do I get myself in the mental state to perform at the best of my abilities? So yeah, definitely trial and error on that, but you figure out over time.
Yeah, I mean, that's cool. I think it's important. Mindset so important in a lot of what people do. I think obviously in sports, but in what you do too. I've been saying all along, even at the beginning of this, that like music and sports has connected
Mm,
so well with one another. That I think it's a topic that goes such hand in hand. I mean, as a coach, I was playing music so much at practice at times because it did bring focus. It did lock
yeah,
things in. At dead areas of practice that you're going to lose focus, like maybe special teams or maybe when you're doing inside drill. And it's just like, that you're going to get the kids even on the sideline, kind of like, if nothing else, at least a little focus, bobbing their heads and kind of
right.
doing their thing.
Yeah,
And
it's important.
yeah, and you and I, obviously, we talked a lot about maybe a little bit of a collaboration that we're doing. We saw each other at Boston PT Wellness in Arlington,
Hmm.
and you knew I was coming in, and Danielle and Joe Nardella came in, and we did a little thing with him from lacrosse, and so you and I chat, and I said, "Hey, I got this idea. I wanted to run by you and talked about you." But we kind of what we've been connecting all along here, but really music is such an interesting thing because I know as a coach when I like would put kids in charge of music, there was always just a fear of like, oh my God, someone's gonna drop an F bomb, someone's gonna say something inappropriate, and then
Yeah,
it's coming down on me, like which is it's happened a few times, right? And so I'm like, I didn't know they were playing that. I didn't know they were playing that. Like, so you now as a coach, on top of the other 400 things that you're trying to do during pregame, you are now like looking at the playlist and checking the playlist and making sure that nothing's explicit and everything's clean version and like, and it's just like it's mind numbing. And I know so many coaches say the same thing. Music that's
yeah,
played today is crap. There's swears, there's this, there's that. You can't put half of it on there because parents will lose their minds.
right.
And you and I kind of talked about like making or collabing on a cool playlist that any school could safely play that has current music that everyone listens to and genres that people listen to, and you just kind of going to work and doing your thing, dude. So I just wanted to talk about that a little bit because I thought that
Yeah,
was really cool of you to be like, yeah, bro, like I see this vision, like let's
absolutely. I love it. I love everything about it. Like I said, when I started DJing, one of the biggest things I was doing was making those pregame mixes. So for me, this is like a super passion project. In something that I wish that I had when I was still in high school playing at MC. So yeah, to give your athletes and all these other high school athletes the ability to hear the music that they want to hear, that's going to get them locked in the zone and fired up for a game. uh Priceless for me, and it's going to be delivered at a super high level. It's going to flow nicely, and like I said, like I'm a big creating moments kind of guy. So to create moments like in the pregame to get the team fired up is what I'm really striving to do with this mix.
Yeah, and we're excited because we've kind of talked to like our high school connections with, fall sports, but particularly more the winter sports because, any gym or any hockey rink alone, the music is played at just even a better level because it's all obviously the sound stays in and so on and so
Yeah.
forth. So it was really cool just to kind of like talk to you about that and how just like instant you were with not only talking about it but really getting started on it. So obviously we're Medford guys, like obviously I like collabing with anyone Medford based or Medford connection that we can do something kind of cool. But to me, I
Yeah.
think this is like, our podcast covers high school sports in a lot of different ways. When people
Hmm.
say to me, they're like, oh, you do a podcast and they see the videography stuff, there's like people who are like better than us in that sense, in that area for sure. Like I'm sure like different DJs that you follow or go check out, like you have a sense of like, all right, this person's better than me at doing this. This is kind of maybe
Yeah.
part of the reason why I'm here, is to see like what I could pick up from them. And we look at that when we look at other people that do the videography stuff. But I think when we look at Beyond, we look at it kind of exactly that, like beyond
Mm.
just that normal coverage. Like for us, like Wednesday, we're gonna have on like Shawshing Tech football coach with 2 or 3 of their players, and then we're covering them Friday night. So it's like we bring access and highlights to their athletes. We also have some of their athletes become our Beyond athletes that we highlight throughout the year. They play different sports. They send us clips. Like we tag different schools. Like so, there's a lot that we do to promote high school sports in a much cool, different way. Like
Yeah.
not by necessarily just catching that perfect clip or doing that certain thing that you catch at the right time, the right moment, which is nice when you do that. But like
Yeah, of course.
for the most part, we try to bring like an experience and a package. And, we have different places we work with, like gyms and like Chini's in
Hmm.
Boston, like Four Pizza in Medford, like, places that we can help promote and vice versa, help promote because our audience are all the same. Like gyms and us are like, perfect match. Like so many young kids that go in there that play sports and like know our stuff and like they know gyms and we know gyms and they see our Instagrams that we do stuff together. So it's just like
Yeah.
it just kind of makes sense to be able to do that stuff and grow that way. So I mean, obviously for you, you're kind of doing that in the same realm. Like like you mentioned, you're going to see people, you're looking how to grow yourself. Where do you see yourself over the next few years? Like where do you see DJ Cammy V being? Like is there a certain point that you see yourself, or you kind of like your play selection, or when you get on and do your thing, are you kind of just seeing where it takes you a little bit?
Yeah. I guess over the next few years, I guess I'll say this. I'm a big put my head down and work as hard as I can kind of guy. And eventually, like when you look up, you're out looking into you have a room of 1,000 people in front of you type deal. So it's got me this far, and I'm looking forward to the future to seeing where that ends up. I guess ideally, I would like to be continuing to do bigger and bigger shows. I think, like I said, right now one of the biggest shows I did was 2,000 people. So continuing to do bigger shows like that, continuing to work with artists. But I guess from the DJing perspective, right? I feel like I can't physically DJ forever. I don't want to be the guy that's in the club at 50 years old, like still busting my back to still like, spin music in the club. Like that's just going to look crazy. So I guess the biggest thing, I'm looking at this from like a holistic approach and, long term wise, so I think realistically, I've put myself in situations where I'm more in like management, well, as well. Like I said, I'm a booking director at Game On. I'm opening a branch for the wedding company that I work for, Meritage, it's out in Philly. I started my own business. I like my own event. It's called Curated. I don't know if you've seen it on my Instagram, but it's basically it's a monthly event, and we have our own camera crew come out to our events and basically record the whole thing. It's super high level, open format DJing, no requests. So it's like a super like unique party. So it's like I have a lot of irons in the fire. I think ultimately like DJing is a vehicle that I can use to, provide for myself and my future family. And I obviously have a deep, deep passion for it, which,
Yeah,
anything.
you too.
Yeah, right. So I have a super, super high passion for it. And, obviously like if I didn't, then I wouldn't be doing it. But I think like DJing combined with like, things that are revolved around DJing is something that I can see myself doing for the rest of my life. Um, yeah, hopefully that
I
answers the
mean, no,
question.
it's a tremendous answer. I mean, you said like, yeah, you can tell there's just so much passion. You're like, yeah, it could be management, it could be higher up music, it could be booking events. Like for you, you're just like, I just know I want to be in this industry right now. And
Hmm.
at what level, who knows? There's probably a lot of different ways you're looking at it as well, as far as like
Right.
these are all legitimate, and sometimes these things just like fall to you like keep going and keep working at it, dude, because like I'm noticing you pop up on my feed more and more all the time because I legitimately watch your stuff or like your stuff or take a peek at your stories. And so I think that you do a great job of like really attracting people on your page, and not just necessarily like with Beyond. I try not to always just have it be sports stuff, because if you're not into sport, then you don't care about anything on my page. So
Right. Right.
I really try to show me a lot, like me being dad, or just like me being out. Like I went to a wedding, and there's a ton of videos, but I'm only gonna post certain ones that are just like, yeah, I don't need to embarrass anybody. So it's like, but
Yeah.
then obviously the music aspect of like putting music on my story and wanting people to watch more and more. When you go on social media, like people's social media, do you notice that stuff when sometimes people use a song, you're like, oh my God, that song's terrible? Or sometimes you hear a song, you're like, oh, I never heard that song before. What song is that? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I get a lot of people that reach out to me for bookings and stuff like that. So, it's funny, your Instagram page is almost like your social resume today. And the first thing I do is usually go check out like the person's Instagram. I don't really care about like the followers or anything like that. That's not what I'm into. I'm into the content. So
yeah,
like I'll go and see if they have any like quick mixes or like cool transitions or anything like that. Like what do you have any videos from you at your gigs? Do you have any pictures? Stuff of that nature. And then it's like, okay, like, if can you send me a mix? Like the biggest thing for me is like, can you rock or not? Like all the other stuff is gravy, right? Can you rock a party or not? Because I'm booking guys that are in it for the right reasons and do an excellent job that the staff love. Like I'm trying to make the business money, and I'm trying to help my friends make money who are good at what they do. So it's
yeah,
like, if you can't provide me like a mix, or if it sounds like a train wreck, like I'm sorry, like I can't in good conscience like book you for this gig. So the biggest thing for me is like, yes, like the Instagram is all cool. Like everyone wants to look cool on Instagram,
yeah.
but at the end of the day, can you actually rock a room full of people in front of you, or is it just going to be a disaster? And I get a call from management like, why the hell did you book this kid?
Yeah, and that must be the challenge for you, dude. That's got to be the challenge for you, especially like, yeah, pleasing people consistently all the time is just not easy, dude. So God bless you in that sense.
I know, yeah, it's like I don't try to make me out to be the bad guy, like, and I'm always constructive about my feedback, and it's never personal. Like if you ask me, like, oh, like why not? I'll be like, hey, if you did like XYZ, worked on this, whatever, and like I'll provide them an opportunity to be like, hey, if you want to work on this with me, definitely let me know. But I can't book you unless like you improve on XYZ. Like I'm always like, I'll give you the feedback if you're asking for it. So it's never like, no, goodbye. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. Obviously you go different shows, different parts of Boston. I mean, I know you follow our rock paper scissors, our morning show stuff a little bit. You've mentioned We do have security. I mean, I do have a security guard. Bodyguard is pretty legitimate. But in all seriousness, I know you're a big fan of that stuff. You kind of messaged me before.
Yeah.
I love getting guests who talk about this because people think I'm crazy that I think this is so funny and how quickly it's caught. And I'm like, I wish you could see my social media feed of how many people DM me and the things they say and how funny it is. And like, because it just people just think like, oh, you're just too connected to it. But it is pretty legitimate. I've had so many
Yeah,
people ask me about it, and you and I have talked about it. You've made plenty of
dude.
comments to me about it.
All the time, man. And Anthony, I'm gonna be honest with you. I love your platform. I love everything that you stand for. I think, just shining a light. This is just like a super untapped thing. And I wish I was back in high school and got to like, relive those days with this platform around, because I think what you're doing is so cool. And I really love to see it grow, man.
Yeah, no, it is. It's been fun, and I think that's it. Like I've gotten asked by people, and sometimes probably like when I ask you, but like what do you want to do with this? Where do you see this in a couple years or whatever? I'm like,
Mm,
I don't really know, because we are tapping into a lot of different things and we are getting involved now in more of the highlight tape rail stuff and people booking us more individually to follow their child. So like we're kind of tapping into different things that we haven't before, or the fact that we book a lot of these schools and they want their kids on the podcast because they want to like showcase kids that they have going to D3, D2, D1, or how well a team's doing, or how consistent maybe a coach has been over their career and how many
hmm
wins they might have. And, before it was like me kind of digging and trying to find it now. And I'm sure for you, it's somewhat the same. Like sometimes you have to turn stuff down because we're just like,
Yeah.
I don't have time to do it. And I've already kind of really solidly booked. And sometimes I'm a victim to just me and one other person. So obviously we're trying to grow and be able to get interns and high school kids that are interested. But that must happen for you a lot too. Like, and that's a good problem, I guess, to have. But
Right.
weddings, let's say, for example, how far booked are you for a wedding like now?
I closed the books for 2024, and I think I have like 4 or 5 weddings in 2025. So
How many are you banging out in a year?
upwards of 20.
Damn.
I try to like cap myself, because obviously, like, I'm pretty active in the nightlife scene. And that's the conversation I have with the owner. Shout out to James Donato. He's the absolute man. Wouldn't want to be doing this with anybody else. He's a great guy and really understands like what position I'm in right now. So it's like, yes, I'm still on the younger side, like I'm still under 30, so I'm still pretty active in the nightlife scene. So I'm helping, build my brand, in the nightlife scene, but it's also helping like build the brand for the wedding company as well. Because people see me like out nightlife, be like,
Hell
hey, I
yeah,
would love for you
dude.
to do my wedding,
6 months
so
of
so
you, yeah, 6 months of you, and then 6 months of, well, a year of also on top of that 6 months of you putting us out there in the nightlife scene in Boston and making a big name for yourself. They should take you for those 20 weeks, those 5 or 6 months, because you spotlight like legitimacy of who they have as someone who's, is big and works with big people and works with this company. So yeah, I think that's like an even. I would if I had a coach that
yeah.
said they coached at Bama and was on my squad, and you can only do certain things just for a certain amount of time. Like, cool, guy who coached at
Yeah,
Bama.
absolutely, absolutely. It's a win-win, man. And like I said, there's no other company I'd rather be working for than Meritage. Uh, super understanding and super flexible when it comes to like, just helping me like build my schedule and understanding what I'm trying to get out of it. Again, it's a win-win. At the end of the day, all we care about is giving these couples like the best of their lives, and we successfully do that.
What's harder to put together? Like when you are feeling a room, is it harder to feel a wedding room, or is it harder to feel like playing at like a 2,000 person venue?
Mm. I think, it's interesting. This is a debate we've had on our own podcast for a while.
Okay,
I think,
cool.
I think personally, the DJing is harder for a club, because like it's just like there's a lot going on.
Okay,
there's
right.
there's a lot going on. You're moving fast through music, but a lot of people will say, "Oh no, DJing weddings are so much harder. You have grandparents, you have parents, you have that weird uncle, you have like kids our age, and then you have even sometimes their kids." So it's like, but for me, it's really it's really not that, and knock on wood, because weddings are very humbling, but it's really not that difficult. You know what I mean? Like, I think I've been doing this a while. I know what's going to work at certain points. And, it's like I said, it's like a comedian, right? Like, I'm setting myself up. There's certain records I play earlier in the night to set myself up for that punchline later on in the night. So if
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I'm getting a good reaction in the first, 20 minutes off, like, if I'm playing some like disco records and everybody in the room is really enjoying it, I'm going to circle back to that later on. But let me get through what I have to get through first, just to see, like, all right, what are the parameters of this room? What direction? Okay, I can go this far, but I can't go that far. So it's like, it's all a mental game that I'm constantly analyzing throughout the night with weddings.
That's awesome, man. I mean, and yeah, like in coaching for me, there's certain aspects of coaching that I was like, oh, other coaches are like, oh, this is tough. I'm like, no, I love this stuff. Like I'll take care of all this. I'll break down the numbers and like I like this stuff. Like it helps
Yep.
me grasp whatever. So I'm sure there's certain things of your job that are grueling a little bit too, knowing that you got to do it, but doing
Yeah.
kind of maybe separates you from maybe those. And this kind of leads me into my last point. Like
Hmm.
so many people I know in high school, when I was in high school, like, oh, I DJ, and they have speakers and they have like a turntable, the basic whatever. Like, oh, I know this person who DJs, and this person DJs. There's that, and then there's like a DJ, like getting to that next step, right? Playing at a bar scene, or playing at a nightclub scene, or playing at a big venue, like getting to those levels. What's your advice to like young kids, maybe high school, middle school age kids that like are into like music, into like DJing, mixing songs? I mean, what would be advice to those kids then pursuing that and not just being that basement DJ, or hey, come play at the VFW for my friends, like whatever. Like they want to get to that next level.
Yeah, I get this question a lot. I think part of it is like having, if you have a really good musical knowledge, and a passion for music, period, that's half the battle. The other half of the battle, is, the technical side of it. And I've been super, super fortunate throughout my career that I've had some amazing mentors along the way, at literally at every level. That have taught me, like, whether it be technical skills, like situational skills, emceeing, how to rock a crowd. There's and it's funny because and a lot of them are still like very, very relevant in the Boston nightlife scene. So if you it's interesting to see, like, if you go see a lot of my mentors play, you can hear like parts of them like through my set and like their influence in my set. So Anthony, I guess all that to say is, try to find, a mentor in the DJ game, because I know a lot of people will go and they'll pay for like the classes, which is like good and fine, but like, unless like you're not willing to go and put the effort in and like work with somebody physically and like ask them questions, and and honestly, like, you need to show up, like you need to go and support some of these guys first to even get your foot in the door to like have an opening opportunity for these DJs. So I'd say, find somebody that's a mentor, and to even like have a conversation with the mentor, you should probably come correct too. I'd say, like, make a mix if you can. Have a list of places that you've played, what events you do, what, like, have a spiel. You have to have an elevator pitch, and you have to come correct to present it to somebody. For them, it's like, hey, if someone pitches something to me, and to be like, hey, I would love to come open for you. This is my style. Here's where I've played. Here's a couple mixes. I'm going to take that person a million times more serious because I know they care. All I want to do is work with people that care about it. So pull everything together, and try to find somebody that's already tapped in the market and be willing to open for them and work with them and learn as much as you can, because they could really take you anywhere.
No, and it's great to hear that advice because I feel like, just having so many different guests on, this is why sometimes I love having people just outside the different world of sports a little bit, is that it's always that same message. Like, find someone who's like a mentor, work with them, show up, be there, like, do the grind. Like, that's just such a general message in like life in general. And I
Hmm.
always try to send that message in sports, like
Yeah.
being a part of a team and listening to a coach who's like a boss you have in the
Yeah.
workforce, and not always agreeing with the people that you work with, or getting along with the people that you work with, but you got to put the product out there that is the most important thing. The company you work for, the team you play for. Like there are so many parallels, and so I ask that question a lot with guests that come on because there's never an answer that is the same, but not the same in the sense that like it's word for word the same. There's no answer that's like word for word not the same, but it's always the same message. It's
Yep.
always like work hard, do the little extra things, listen, like be a sponge, like all of like everyone says those little things that all mean the same exact thing. So it's cool just to kind of hear in your industry is probably how you've grown the most.
That's it, man. And it's just like any other industry. It is a full-time job. I do this full time. I take this super, super serious. So, it's some people obviously are in it for the wrong reasons, whether it's, like, oh, I get free drinks or I get to meet girls at the bar. You know what I mean?
Uh,
I don't have time to work with people like that. I only have time with the people, the like-minded people that, just love it, that want to do it because they love it and want to be great at it. And, put out a product that, the people that attend those venues are going to love and management's going to love because they're making money. So there's a lot of like other elements at play, but yeah, at the end of the day, man, it's really like just any other job. I know it's crazy. It's like you wouldn't think so, but there needs. I just want to communicate that there is a level of professionalism with DJing.
No, it's great to hear, and I can tell like you obviously take this extremely serious. This is your passion, and like I said, we follow that stuff on here with passion. And to me, music, like I take music so seriously when I make reels or I put things on my story because to me, any good song like you don't probably ever listen to the radio, and unfortunately like I don't have like serious radio in my car, so but I get stuck listening to music, and sometimes I hear a song that I was listening to on serious radio and like 4 months later it comes out on like 96.9 or Kiss 108 and you're like, dude,
Yeah,
the song from
ruined.
right, like
Yeah, yeah.
so, obviously, keeping up with that aspect of being on the East Coast, I'm sure is even a little bit more difficult because music does come out here a lot later, I'm sure. Or, I mean, obviously, with all the different types of Spotify, everything else, you aren't necessarily worrying about that. But, you growing in what you do you feel as though like I'm trying to think how to ask this question without just like making it sound like, but do you feel like at this point like what's like the highest level you would want to play at, right? Like if you had to look at a venue right now that you could just like rock it, like you had the opportunity to go out there, kill it right now, what's the venue for you?
Man, I don't know. I think because to be honest, I think at this point, right now where I'm at, I am doing like the biggest venues possible in the city.
Yeah.
So I guess to continue to be in those rooms more consistently is what I would love to do. I think touring is something that I would enjoy to do, but again, that's I don't want to be on tour for like months at a time.
Yeah.
Like, I have family, I have a social life, I have a girlfriend. Like it's just not gonna it's not in the
Not how
cards for me.
it
Nor but again, if I can like do like a travel gig here and there, like I had last month I went to Texas A&M, one of the best gigs I've ever done in my life. Probably the highlight of my DJing career. It was awesome. Very cool experience. So continuing to do like bigger shows like that, I guess like the next step after that would be like a stadium. So and more often than not, it would be like if I was opening for an artist. So I've been like, I've been like loosely talking to a couple artists and stuff like that, and they expressed interest in me having to like open for them for a show. So I don't know. I don't know where
Right,
I'll end
dude.
up
It's
or anything
just
like
great
that. So
listening to that though, because it's just like
yeah,
you don't know. It's not like you don't know because you just like don't know. You don't know because there's like I get this door kind of open, this door kind of open, that door kind of open, and that's like
right.
a cool feeling because
Yeah,
you having options in anything is great. It's just
yeah,
making sure it's the right option that works for you. Um, and you mentioned like different different people that do it like mentors so on. Who are people that you can either mention a mentor or who's
yeah.
somebody you listen to in the game now that you like really follow that has a huge following that you're like, yeah, I emulate somewhat this type of music?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll go through and just list my mentors. So DJ Toomey was the first one that gave me my Boston opportunity. So, and I'm super, one of my best friends, super, super close with him. So forever grateful. DJ Snacks, who I do the podcast with, he's the one that gave me my first club opportunity.
Oh,
And me and him are like super like-minded people, super like-minded, like DJing styles and creativity wise. Like we're very much on the same wavelength. Dan Campbell, who probably one of my technical like biggest mentors, just like overview of the industry, technical skills, like taught me everything like scratching, which is like a big part of my sets, and also now my business partner. So
which is
we
right.
open up curate. Yeah. So it's interesting. My mentors are the people that I work very close with even today. So I think those three guys are, and like obviously amongst others like Fingers, who I do the podcast with, and DJ Stamps. There's a lot of guys that have given me a lot of opportunities and advice over the years that like, they didn't have to do that, and I
Yeah.
think I'm like super appreciative that they did, because now like I'm in the position to be giving advice to other people, and I definitely believe in paying it forward.
And that's nice in that sense, right? Because the one thing that I'm sure like you do, like, because your mentors have the same passion that you do about what you're doing, right? Like,
Yeah,
so they help you just grow that passion even more. Like when I looked at coaching, I used to explain to people, like, after coaching a game on a Friday night, there was nobody more I wanted to spend time with than was the staff after
yeah,
the game, getting apps and having drinks and talking about the game either way, because you had a bunch of different guys that were all different ages that range from guys in their 50s to their 40s to their 30s to their 20s, but everybody had the same passion and wanted to be a part of something special. And it didn't matter our ages. We all got along. We texted with each other like throughout the week. When football season died out, the group text might have died out a little bit here and there, but but for the most part, you're around people that will like share that passion. So it's not surprising that you're in business with them or working with them, because who
yeah.
else would you be as the people that kind of maybe feel the same way about what you do and how you do it?
Right. And at the end of the day, they're all great people. Like I want to work with great people. If you're a great dude or a great girl, like I want to work with you. Like it doesn't matter, if it, like you could be the most talented person in the world, but if like you're not like a good person at heart, like I just can't I can't bring myself to working with you.
Right.
So
And so I mean, just hearing you talk when I asked that question before, so you kind of want to be the biggest guy in Boston. Is that fair to say? Like you want to be the guy around here?
yeah, and I think everybody should have that goal ultimately, right? I mean, again, everyone has their own agenda and everything, but I think, at the end of the day, like,
Who
if
wouldn't
you
be?
aren't,
Right.
yeah, you want to try to be the best at whatever you do. And I think, I want to be, I guess one of my biggest goals is to at least get nominated for Boston DJ of the Year, which is Boston Music Awards. They do an award show every year, and it's like it's all local artists, all Boston based. So you have like artists, bands, you name it. It's top to bottom, anything music or producers, anything music related in Boston. They put on an award show once a year, and they one of the things they do is like Boston DJ of the Year. So I'm not gonna lie, that's probably like my biggest goal, is to one, get nominated, and they have like a board, that sits down and comes up with a list of people that you can vote for to win the award. So I think the biggest thing is, if the board recognizes that I guess I belong in that group. I think having that acceptance from my peers, um, probably would mean the most to me. I wouldn't really care if I won or not. I mean, obviously I
You
would a little
would,
bit,
but
but
right, I got
yeah,
it.
but like having that acknowledgement from my peers that like I'm, in that circle, would mean more to me than actually winning that physical award.
No, I mean it's cool, dude. And I think at the end of the day, we all don't do the things that we're passionate about because, I mean, yeah, it's nice to get rewarded or get compensation for it in some way, but
Yeah,
most of the time we're just kind of looking for the acknowledgement of like something we did with it to be complimented more than we're
right.
looking at the compensation aspect of it, right? Because
Exactly, and it's like even like high school sports seasons. How many teams win the championship at the end of the year?
right,
One.
one,
So
there's
it's like,
one.
did every other team a failure?
Right,
No, no,
exactly.
exactly. You all accomplished something. You all have something to be proud of.
Yeah.
And the fact that you like work together as a team, to achieve a mutual goal. Like that is a massive accomplishment.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I look at it, you know, and I think years of sports have taught me that.
Yeah, and it's cool, like I said, and like I've been saying all along, I just think music and sports tie in so well together nowadays, especially with social media and whether it's Twitter for sports or Instagram.
Mm,
And I follow Max Preps like everything, and sometimes just the music they throw on something, or just the natural sound that they catch with something. But
yeah.
I always tell people, I'm like, just have your phone out and just like let it run sometimes, because you just like I was at a wedding last night and we're getting on the shuttle bus, and I knew maybe like 5 or 6 people on the shuttle bus, but that was about it. And all of a sudden my friend's girlfriend just starts pelting out Whitney Houston, and I just happened to put my phone on just for something completely different and silly, and I caught that, and I was just like, oh my god. And that's what I noticed, like in our sports coverage. Like it's sometimes not the fancy smancy camera that like can zoom in and catch
Mm,
the sweat trickling off your face. Sometimes it's like being on the sideline. It's 3rd and 7. They're throwing the ball, and this is their best receiver. So I'm just gonna have this phone follow this kid, and all of a sudden it's a ball right to your sideline. The kid makes a great catch, great hit out of bounds, and there's your soundbite that you're throwing on Instagram, tagging the kid on social media. He's sharing on his story.
yeah.
10 followers, because every kid now is like, oh crap, what's this? I want to get on this podcast. I want to show my stuff off. Like, so it's yeah, dude. It's just I hear your passion, and I'm just like babbling on about like mine.
No, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think it definitely all ties in, even in like nightlife too, right? Like a lot of like the Boston athletes have like come out to like gigs that I've done,
Yeah,
which is like pretty wild. Like I'm not gonna lie, that still is like pretty wild to see. Like I've done like some gigs in the past where like a bunch of the Bruins players came out, like Corrali when he was still around here.
yeah, yeah,
Pasternak came out. Do you remember Ryan Spooner? You remember
yeah,
him?
yeah, yep.
So he actually used to DJ too, and I did a couple of gigs with him. So that
That's
was
so
kind of cool.
cool.
And even like all the Celtics guys, like Kemba when he was around, Marcus Smart when he was around. My buddy Snacks and I DJ Jason Tatum's birthday at the club.
Dude,
So
that
that
was
was,
a big thing. Yeah, I remember everyone
yeah.
posting for that. Yeah, 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 yeah.
So yeah, I mean, those guys, and again, like tying back into it, like all those guys like love music, like they're bumping music like in the locker room before a game. And
Yeah.
like for them, like to go and celebrate like a special occasion, they're obviously going out and having a good time at the club and listening to music. So yeah, music can really like take people places.
Yeah, man. And this is why I wanted to have you on. Like, I sometimes stalk people on social media a little bit. I'm not saying that's what I did. Maybe kind of sort of like, but like, but yeah, like, there's nothing cooler than like, this is hard for me. Like, I have twins. This isn't my only job. Like, I
Yeah.
teach, I run summer camps in the summer. I work at night. Like, there's a lot that I do. So it's hard to like, really put work into this. So when I'm putting work into it, it's like I went away and had a great weekend away with friends, but I don't really get to see
Mm,
my friends often, because it's really just like family, work, and then this is like the hustle whenever I can like do it. So it's not always easy to have the time to do stuff, to grow this, to get better at it, but it's a passion. And that's like what I see with you on your social media. Like there is just a clear passion, just you talking about it is a clear passion. So anybody who's doing something, even if it connects to my world a little bit, it's worth having on here to get people to talk about that stuff, because it's nice when people want to listen to the things that you like really want to talk about. So
yeah, man,
um,
absolutely.
yeah, it's been great having you on here. And yeah, dude, we'd love to promote you anyway. Any shows you have coming, always feel free to tag us in your story or whatever, and we'll share it on ours as well, like automatically. And yeah, we obviously gonna be collabing with the music. We'll be in touch with all that. But you got a bright future, man. I can definitely see you just like growing in this industry, and just watching who you're meeting, and your social media has been fun to kind of follow along with you. So you've been doing a great job, and I'm glad we were able to make this time work. I know you're super busy with a zillion things coming up like real soon.
Yeah, man, dude. Thank you so much for having me on. Really means the world, and really appreciate it. Guys, you can find me on Instagram at Cammy_V. There's 3 M's in Cammy. You could also follow me at But I Know the DJ. That's the podcast that I run. The event I run is at Curated Period Live. And then also, I would be remiss if I didn't give them a shout out, because this is how we made the connection. Shout out Boston Physical Therapy and Wellness. You can also catch me there on Mondays and Wednesday nights. I do physical therapy part time now as well. Shout out to Dave, one of the best bosses you could ever ask for in a guy. Shout out Danielle. So definitely, I'm at the Arlington Clinic. So guys, if you especially our athletes, if you ever need like a good PT, come on down to Boston Physical Therapy and Wellness. But yeah, Anthony, thank you so much, man, for having me on.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, it was great when they opened up the Arlington location. I really helped Dave get in touch where I coach Arlington Catholic to like, and I hyped him up like good. I mean, this product speaks for itself, so it's like
Yeah,
help. But it's always nice to feel like you can help someone who helps a lot of people. To say that you're
absolutely.
in some way. So I didn't realize that about you. Okay, that all makes sense why you're there. I didn't realize you were part time there. That's very cool.
Yeah. So I was full time, and then I ended up like having to drop back down a little bit just because of the DJing.
So,
But yep.
dude,
So I'm
your schedule is like just you like if your schedule was identified like in a color scheme, it would be insane. It would be insane.
I wish I could show you my schedule on my Google Calendar. It's actually hilarious. Let me see. I don't know. Come on.
Back it up right there, right there. Oh
Dude, it's
my
insane.
god,
Yeah.
dude. Gives me
Yeah, it's
anxiety.
well. Yeah, you're telling me.
That's
Yeah,
it.
but
And
it's
you're
good. It keeps me going, keeps me out of trouble. It keeps
dude,
me out
good
of
for
trouble.
you, man. Good for you. That's a hustle right there. And like I said, I didn't even realize you worked at Boston PT. So that's just another branch of like what you do to hustle to be great. And that's like honestly, man, that's even better of having you on here because that just shows like you're doing something you're passionate about when you have majority of your other free time to do it on top of everything else that you're doing as well. So
I've been super lucky that everything that I've done is something that I'm like very, very passionate about. I feel like a lot of people don't have the opportunity to do what they love in life. And, I'm feeding both of my passions still with the PT and the DJing. So things are great, man.
yeah, man. Well, listen, we're glad to have you on here. And like I said, guys, we have a crazy busy like rest of the month coming up. We're gonna be at Shawsheen Tech this Friday night against Stoneham, two Super Bowl teams from last year, kind of going against each other. So it should be packed there. And then we close out the month in the Neshoba Tech, their last home game in September. So they always put on a show and come out to the Irish music and come walking down with the flags and the bagpipes. They don't mess around. So we're super excited about covering these two teams, really all these teams that are playing. And then October, we're extremely booked, but we'll go over that schedule when we get closer to that. So again, Cammy, thanks for coming on. DJ Cammy V, guys. He gave you his Instagram stuff, all his way to get in touch with him, and he's been killing it in the Boston music scene. So we're very lucky to get him on here. I'm your host, Anthony Petrellis, guys. Till next time.